Good morning. I wanted to start this early because I want to see about sharing my screen. No. What? How do I get rid of that? Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I'm like really jazzed right now because my coffee is like hitting me. I don't know if you drink coffee.
No, I can't eat any caffeine at all, and it
Really?
sucks. No, if I have caffeine past like 10 o'clock, I'm up at like 2 in the morning.
Oh my God, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, that might be part of my issue or something. I don't know. I think my coffee, it hits me differently at different times. Usually if
Okay.
I eat something like I am fine.
hmm
But it just out of the blue randomly will just sucker punch me and I'm just like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." So
Yeah, I get all
like,
jittery and all that stuff. Yeah,
that's
it's not good.
that's how I feel right now. So it's like that would be probably if something's off or like Leah is really talking fast today. That would be why. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So
Amazing progress.
yeah, I've been happy. So it's going well, and I've been doing the exercises that like last week was consistent, and so yeah, I feel good about them too. So I
Awesome.
like
Oh,
them. Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Awesome. I'm planning to get some more out. I feel like a 6 week, consistent 6 weeks of doing the same like rotation and split
hmm
is like
Yeah.
a good consistent and then like changing that up because it's like
Okay. Yeah.
then your body like it likes that confusion. It likes
Sure.
confusion, but it's
hmm
also fun to do a workout and see the next time you do it how much better you got or stronger,
hmm
what it felt like that time. So
Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah, it's I mean it's not the end of the world, but that's just how I like to do it. And I do get bored easily
I was to
myself.
say, I was to say, variety is good.
It is. Variety is really good. And there's like, but there's also, it's like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And that's a great feeling too. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I got this down and you might be able to, go harder or add another set.
hmm
Because you're like, wow, that didn't seem like enough for me. So yeah, there's a benefit to both.
Okay.
Benefit to both. Do you have any the food's going well and all
Yeah,
that?
food's going well. I was glad that you gave me the substitution list. So I figured out all of the grams that I can have with
Yeah.
the other foods. So that way I can start doing that. So I think I'm going to start introducing just a different protein at dinner time
Mhm.
because I'm okay eating chicken at lunch every time. That doesn't bother me. So, but I think just dinner will be good. So
Yeah.
um, and then I can probably just eat the same thing my family is eating.
Right. Right. I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I wonder, are you still there? Did I just hang up on you?
Nope, I'm here.
Okay, hang on. I am, of course. Um, okay, there we go. I just want to make sure no one else is trying to get on here. So there's Cassie.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't sure how that was going to work. I'm so excited. Did you get to see my screen? Did you see that? It said "Why Fat Loss Stalls Out."
Yep. I did.
Ah!
You're doing so good.
I know. I feel so like just smart. I'm like, yeah, baby.
These
That's
are big things.
that's
These
your
are big.
wheelhouse, isn't it? That's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you just know what to do.
Yeah. Everything is different though. I mean, so I'm a software developer, but at the same time, if I haven't used that software, then
Right.
it's figuring it out. So yeah.
Yeah, it
So
is. I went
I'm
the Geek Squad. Hello, Cassie. How are you? the Geek Squad, I went in and this was when I first got my laptop, and the password to just get into the computer,
Mhm.
it wasn't accepting it.
Oh, no.
And it never gave me an option to recover it.
Oh,
I was
geez.
like, I don't really know where to go from here. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this has happened before. And so then they're like, we're just going to have to they're like, we've never seen this before. I was like,
Huh.
you haven't seen this before? Like, we're just gonna have to. Okay, no
Mhm.
problem, Cassie. No problem. Baby sleeping. We get it. Yeah. So I am going to talk to you guys about something that has come up. And this isn't singling anyone out. So I don't want anybody to ever feel like, oh my gosh, let's totally talk to her about this week or anything. It's many people. And it's not just since this program started. This is one of the best ways. And I've said things to you like the last thing we want to do is take away food. That's like our last resort. And then there's a checklist of things that we go through first. And if we're doing all of those right, then we consider taking a very small portion of a macro away, and what macro that is. So I'm going to go through that. Cassie, if you have anything you want to share, I'll keep an eye on the chat. And anybody else who joins us at the time. I know a couple, it's Marshina's birthday today. She's our new queen in our program. And so she is going to Big Cedar to get a massage. And she's like, it's been like 10 years since I've gotten one. I'm like, girl, go, get everything. That is so funny. I was like, yeah, massages are totally worth it. So I'm going to share my screen. And then I know a couple of them have just work and school and stuff. So you can see my screen. Yes. That's what I want. Okay. Why fat loss? And this I put together last night because I was just like, I want to stay on point, and I'm a visual person. I love to be able to read along with someone and then I can talk a little bit about it. But if we ever wonder why our fat loss stalls and what to do, this is what we want to do. And a lot of people, they'll be stuck. And I think I have just even in the process of having babies, been stuck losing the 10 to 12, 15 pounds again and again over the years, because you just go on this yo-yo thing. So we're going to simplify nutritional science behind fat loss stalls, the steps to fix fat loss stalls, how to adjust your macros to break plateaus, which I know is going to be a really big part of it for you guys, especially so you can take this with you. I probably will do this in a video and then let you guys have access to it so you can refer back. And then the 4 pieces of your metabolism. So we're going to talk about what it is that burns the calories. So there's 4 pieces of your metabolism. There's the basal metabolic rate, your BMR, which you probably have heard. It's the calories you burn just to be you, just to stay alive all day long. That won't change. Calories burned through things like just breathing and laying there and all of that. The heavier you are, usually the higher your BMR, which, right, that makes total sense. I need to move you guys. There we go. So then there's thermic effect of food, the TEF. Your body actually burns calories while digesting the food you eat. So the TEF of protein is the most, right? 20 to 30%. That's why we want a lot of protein. TEF of carbs is 5 to 10%, and TEF of fat is 0 to 3%. And you'll see why I chose some of the things that I chose on your meal plans, and why it's like, well, I don't have that amount of fat on my meal plan. Remember this moment. Remember the TEF, okay? So then there's the NEAT, which is the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It is what we just do, our lifestyle. We go for regular walks. It is our most controllable variable of the metabolism. And it makes the biggest difference in the metabolism of lean and obese individuals. So sedentary people versus someone who's just up and constantly going, you've got a very different type of NEAT going on. Thermic effect of exercise. So this is your lifting weights. This is your cardio, the smallest portion of your metabolism, believe it or not, that is the smallest one. So that's why we always talk about your food is the biggest part of this, right? Because it is the size we are, of course, which then it's kind of counterintuitive because we're trying to get smaller, our BMR changes, but then the thermic effect of food. Notice that is the second one there. And that is what we're eating and putting in our bodies actually makes our body burn calories. So our exercise is important. Yes. But just like here, it says you can burn 500 calories in an hour, which that's really hard to do, you guys. That you are working your ass off to do that. Like on the SteriMill, I am doing that right now, just in prep. And then you can drink a 500 calorie margarita in 5 minutes. Like, oh, right. So it's like, no. Okay, why won't? Okay, there we go. So don't worry, a slower metabolism is normal. It's a part of weight loss. So there's metabolic adaptation. Just like I said, your BMR drops as you lose, your smaller body burns fewer calories. This also applies to the TEE. A smaller person will burn fewer calories during exercise. And then the TEF drops. Since you're eating less food, some of this, these things can be offset by increasing protein intake, which is what I always say, that's the macro, the magical macro. And it burns the most, like when your body's digesting it, it's the most of what your body is burning. So a decrease in calories still generally creates a drop in the TEF. Calories burned via NEAT also drop. When dieting, you're depriving the body of energy and calories. You're more lethargic. That is me. I am definitely feeling prep. I'm feeling the less food. So I maybe rest. I actually don't have a problem napping anymore or laying down. The step goals and increasing exercise helps, but a decrease in calories burned here is inevitable. So when you eat more, it has the opposite effect of your metabolism. You have more energy, you're eating more food and have potentially a larger body. So you start to burn more calories, right? So, but this is circumstance, your body is getting smaller as a result of your diet and burns fewer calories as it shrinks. Thus, your metabolism slows. Some of this is an inevitable part of fat loss and actually means you're achieving the goal of the diet, right? Well, you don't want a smaller body. So in my experience, in training and coaching everybody, metabolic adaptation, and I don't know if you've heard of that, it's where your body adjusts. So the less calories, the slower it is, and the increase, the higher it goes. It is rarely the reason for fat loss stall out. It's like 5% of the time. If your fat loss is stalled right now, you're probably in the other 95%, meaning you don't need to decrease your calories. Or, I love this part, increase cardio. we don't need to do that yet in order to resume our fat loss. So the goal within the coaching that I do with you guys is to always keep you eating as much as possible. And there was a lot of under eating going on. That's very typical. I see that just all the time. So we want you to eat as much as possible while achieving your leanest, most confident self. So let's get to why. Here are the reasons. There's 95% of the time. Most of the time, your fat loss actually stalls due to error in measuring calories in. So that is just not tracking. People are often too quick to cut calories. Why is that? It's easier maybe when it's not actually metabolic adaptation, because that would be the only reason you cut calories, is that I'm doing all this stuff and I'm having too many calories, but we're mismanaging the calories in. So this is a really great visual on why your macros quit working. And so there's too many flexible foods that are hard to track, not tracking entire meals or days. I have dry mouth, sorry. Not tracking nibbles, guilty. Cooking oils, which sometimes we think, oh, it's just so it doesn't stick to the pan. No, that gets absorbed. Condiments and alcohol, even a very low calorie alcohol is going to change. Your body's going to take energy from that instead of the energy from the macros. So it temporarily hits the pause button on fat burning. And I try to explain that to a lot of my clients, because that is one of the hardest things for a lot of people to give up. Next, estimating portions instead of measuring. Definitely want to measure. Even if you have a tablespoon and you do this in the peanut butter, but you don't slide off that top, you're almost doing 1.5 times the amount you should. And those little things add up like crazy. Excuse me, I'm having issues. So lastly, not likely you need to decrease the calories. So there's a vicious cycle we're on. We cut calories, still not losing. Cutting calories again, still not losing. Oh, these don't just work for me. You quit, a few months go by, and then you start that cycle all over again. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. So the last thing we do in nutritional coach is cut calories. So question 1, I would ask you, if you're like, I'm not seeing progress, I would ask you, how have you been measuring your food? Oh no, have your measurements decreased? That's the next one. So what do I like to look at most is your measurements that you take on your body. So if those are changing, that's the single biggest factor I adjust your nutrition from, if those don't change. Your weight stall or even increase due to factors like building lean muscle, which we kind of like, that's cool. I want to do that. Stress, digestion, sleep, hormones, just to name a few things that us ladies go through. The measurements will give a much more accurate picture of our progress. So a lot of you, I think almost all of you, have been like, but I've only lost this much. And then I say, but look at all the progress that this has happened. And so also, if you've lost like a 1/4 inch off of multiple measurement sites, it's safe to say that you're losing fat. No nutrition adjustment is needed. Okay. So the scale is a lying bitch. I'm telling you, just throw her out, because she really gets in our heads. So question 2, I'd ask you, has your weight decreased? So the ideal speed of weight loss is 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. I typically have seen more like the 1 to 2 pound. If it's less, no big deal. I look at measurements. There's a lot of other factors we look at. But like I mentioned, scale weight can fluctuate pretty wildly due to things like water retention from higher sodium intake, stress, digestive issues. Have you pooped lately? You know, so many things. Most should see a monthly trend of 2 to 4% of your body weight loss, but this rarely plays out as losing exactly 0.5 to 1% per week. So just know that is a moving target. Again, measurements are super important. Don't get caught up weekly weight changes. Look at the trend over the multiple weeks and months. You guys, I kind of started prepping a little bit before I got my actual meal plan from my coach. And so I was cleaning up my diet, which, you know, I wanted to do. I have no idea what I weighed. And I guessed at what I weighed. And then I bought a scale, and it's higher than I expected it to be. And I'm working and working. I'm being perfect on my plan. I'm doing everything. I'm working my tail end off. And I'm not seeing very much movement, in my opinion. I can feel it. I can see it. Other people can see it already with 1 week under my belt. So yes, I get impatient too. I want it now. I'm working so hard. And someone said to me that they're like, how long have you been on the plan? I'm like, a week. And they're like, yeah. Okay, so don't get caught up in the weekly weight changes. And then also, it depends on how lean you are, how much muscle you're building as you lose fat. If you've lost 0.5% of body weight, no nutrition adjustments needed. We need to move on to question 3. So did fat loss stall abruptly, or did hunger largely decrease? So metabolic adaptation is a slow process. Fat loss via metabolic adaptation happens very slowly, with the rate loss gradually decreasing. So if you saw good changes on these macros a few weeks ago, and then an abrupt stall, you probably don't need to decrease calories yet. Similarly, if you've been relatively hungry throughout the fat loss phase, which that is the normal 2.5 to 3.5 is the normal fat loss phase. Suddenly you see a large decrease in hunger without drastically increasing percent of protein or whole foods within your calories. It's likely that calories in have increased, or calories burned through your movement has decreased. Does that make sense? Another question I'd ask you is, are you consistently hitting your macros? This is a big one. Okay, this one's pretty simple. If you're not consistently hitting your macro goals, then you're just eating more calories needed to lose fat. So no macro adjustment can make up for the lack of consistency. There's that C word. So if you're struggling to hit your macros, then we need to talk and look at a few things. Oftentimes people struggle to stick with the diet because the diet structure is a poor fit for your lifestyle. So there was a situation where we weren't seeing progress, and I found out that her schedule had changed and she was getting up way, way earlier. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then she wasn't having her first meal until like when I thought she was. And so I said, we need to adjust things. That's why I asked, kind of like, is this something where you can cook it at home, or do you need it on the go? And I often will create that meal based on what's going on around you. Picking up kids from school, stuff like that. But if you are having issues, talk to me, DM me, we'll talk about that. If you're not consistently hitting your macros, the nutrition is no nutrition decrease is needed. We'll just revisit your diet strategy and make sure it's a best fit in your consistency. If you're hitting your macro target consistently, we move on to question 5. Are you measuring food accurately? Now, this was the one that I was starting to talk to you about before. Tracking accurately requires measuring most of your food. I know it's a pain in the ass. It's a huge pain in the ass, but not as much as kind of tracking food for years and never getting results, right? So truly, this is one could go on about for a long time, but I'll keep it brief. Tools to help track accurately. Food scale, huge. I weigh everything. A set of measuring cups, yes, and teaspoons and tablespoons. Like I said, the tablespoon has to be leveled off, scraped off. And then the most common tracking mistakes, cooking oils. If you don't apply it directly to your food, but you line the pan with it, still gets absorbed. This can add hundreds of untracked calories. Dressings, toppings, alcohol, condiments, the 2 biggest culprits here are salad dressings and condiments like barbecue sauce. Both are sneaky, high in calorie, and all too easy to forget to track because those are calories. The macro that is are sugars or carbs. So that's that macro. A continuation of measuring macros. So much for keeping it brief, right? Estimating instead of measuring. You're typically pretty terrible estimating our food intake accurately. So not tracking entire meal or days. Getting too flexible with foods that are hard to track accurately. Nothing at all wrong with going out to eat, but food you didn't prepare yourself always leaves much more room for error. And I always will, even if I'm not super strict on a plan, I would ask the chef or the cook or the broiler not to use any oils, to specifically leave off, they call it go juice. I used to work at a steakhouse. I know what they call this stuff. It is lemon butter, and they just douse it all over your food. And that's why it tastes so good. So I tell them dry And if you say that dry, then they usually know what you're talking about. So even if your macros look perfectly in your tracker, eating out too frequently can still lead to underestimating calories. And then you don't track using metrics like you don't do small, medium, or large, unless I do write like medium green apple. That's post-workout. That's not as big of a deal. Medium banana. I don't know if there's a banana that's so drastically different than the next to where it's going to be something you have to cut it up and weigh it and do all that stuff. No. And this is post-workout. So those two, I feel a little more flexibility on, but otherwise, you measure in grams. It's the most accurate way on your food scale. And if you're realizing you're not measuring your food accurately, don't beat yourself up. It's a common mistake. You and I can take the next few weeks to work through like what you're doing, your food diary, and figure out anywhere inaccuracies can be slipping in. So if you're measuring your food accurately, let's move on to question 6. Are you consistently hitting your daily movement goal? So my question would be, what does your daily meals look like? And then what do your workouts look like? And then we'll go deeper into those things. So like we talked about earlier, NEAT is the most manipulable variable of your metabolism. Metabolism varies a lot in how it responds to overeating or undereating, especially for NEAT. That's, remember, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So most clients' metabolisms fall into one of these two categories, of metabolism. So I am actually this one, because when I go from a prep season, which is very, very low calories, and then I go to an off season, I only fluctuate about 10 pounds. And so this is the adaptive metabolism. For these people, you eat more, your body automatically increases NEAT to compensate. Just subconscious fidgeting, blinking, pacing. You just do more because you got more energy. So your body adapts to higher calorie intake by increasing calories burned through movement. So weight stays the same even with calorie increases. Like, that's totally awesome, right? And that's what I like usually will some people call it, they feed out of a show. They reverse diet. You may have heard that, they reverse diet. So the opposite happens on a diet when you eat less. Your body decreases the NEAT by a large degree to compensate. Your body adapts to lower calorie intake by decreasing calories burned through movement. So weight stays the same, even with the calorie lower than before. That's frustrating. And if you guys have noticed, now that you're eating more, you have more energy. Kathy, I think you even said, wow, that's amazing. Your pre-workout meal really gives you that fuel to do a harder workout. And it's like, yes, because we increased your NEAT. Okay. Rigid metabolisms. These people see very little or no increase in NEAT as a response to overeating. Thus, fat gain is a bit easier. But on the bright side, these people usually don't have to decrease calories as much to lose fat, because calories burned through NEAT doesn't decrease as much as it would for an adaptive metabolism. Okay. Think about what you are. Here's a study, really interesting study. There were 16 people were given 1,000 calories over their maintenance calories per day. So everyone has a different maintenance calories per day. And you can dial that in even deeper and deeper and deeper, but this is their starting point. They added 1,000, and there was weight gain between individuals varied from 0.8 pounds, not even a pound, to almost 10 pounds within 8 weeks. The change in NEAT between individuals also vary wildly from a negative 98 calories. How cool. That's kind of like what's happening with a lot of you. We added calories and you're burning now more through your activity because we increased your activity and you're seeing results. It's the best of both worlds. And then up to 692 calories per day of a surplus. That means they did not burn that many. So those were probably the people that gained almost 10 pounds. So basically the 16 people in the study had crazy different responses to eating the same calorie surplus. There's a huge variance in how people's energy expenditure, the NEAT, responds to overfeeding or underfeeding. So the point, as you diet, movement will likely reduce. While you can't account for all the fidgeting, blinking you might cease to do, we do give all fat loss focused clients a daily movement goal. And that is something that can be, there's like levels that you can get to. 10,000 steps is kind of is a very typical goal that a lot of people set. I think even on your watches, it like automatically sets it at 10,000 so that you know. And I've asked a lot of you and have talked about it, like, do you have a tracker of some kind? Because on days that you may not get in a workout and you're like, oh my gosh, I usually burn 1800 according to this device, doesn't necessarily mean it's a real 1800. And I have only burned like 1500. I am behind. You go for a walk, add something to your regimen, do your 20-minute HIIT. Excuse me, stay consistent, and your body is going to understand. So this helps ensure that your weight loss has installed from a decrease in hasn't stalled. I dictated this so quickly last night. So has not stalled from a decrease in movement. And then if you realize movement has decreased, schedule in, like I said, 1 to 2 walks per day as you need to hit your movement goal. Then your progress should resume. If you're hitting your movement goals, moving on to question 7. What is your last macro adjustment less than 2 weeks ago? Or was your last macro adjustment less than 2 weeks ago? And I've made some adjustments, but I haven't made adjustments based on lack of progress. I've just dialed in and tweaked some of your guys's and some variety. But it just takes time for a decrease in calories to compound to noticeable changes. So if it's been less than 2 weeks since your last macro adjustment, which we really haven't done a whole lot, you likely need to just give it more time. This was preaching to me. It will pick up in a week. I should see movement. So if it has been, for example's sake, if it has been 2 or more weeks, then move into 8. So have you taken a diet break in the last 12 weeks? Diet break. Everybody's ears perked up. What? For most clients, sticking to a diet seems to get much harder after the 6 to 12 week. That's why I like you to change out macros and change things out. And then just the potential psychological benefits of a diet break are huge. I need a diet break whenever I get done doing a show. I don't track, I don't measure. I just listen to my body and I know what it's asking for. I don't go crazy and go on the other end of the spectrum, but I definitely need that psychological break. And my body usually responds really, really well. And I have all this energy and I can lift really hard in the gym. And the 2 weeks after a show is actually pretty magical. You get a lot of growth. So, and if you've taken a diet break in the last 12 weeks, it's time to make an adjustment. So this is the 3 options you have. If all of those things are in order, you have 3 options. You can decrease your calories in, you can increase your calories out. I didn't put the word out, or a combination of both, decreasing calories in and increasing calories out. This is what decreasing your calories in. All your foods are made up of the combination, or at least one of these macros, right? The protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So when you're setting your macros and adjusting your macros, there are some boxes that we want to make sure are checked. We talk about protein intake. It needs to be, I just say 1 gram per pound of body weight that you are. There is a caveat to some of these 2 things, because then it talks about our fat intake. It's important, but anywhere between 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound body weight. I usually get this doe-eyed, huge look from people when I say that. They're like, oh my gosh. But I'm telling you, after everything you've learned in this quick overview presentation, it's what our body, 20% of our body calories burn are from burning protein. So maybe that'll really inspire a lot of people. For hormonal health and preventing fatty acid deficiencies, you need to be eating 0.3 grams of fat per pound or more daily. And there's a lot of details around that. But the caveat to this rule is, where's your starting point at? So we can't go from having 2 meals a day to then 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and 0.3 grams of fat per pound of body weight all in one foul swoop. So most are under eating. So we gradually build to these numbers. Okay. And then based on how advanced the situation is, you mess with both of these and not more dominant than the other. My situation, we mess with both rarely. And she does. At the very end, she messes with my protein, but I'm telling you, that is a very short-lived situation and is not sustainable at all. Promise you that. So how you're going to presume fat loss if you have stalled out. This is, of course, I'm going to be available. But if this is on your own and you're like, okay, what do I need to do? I went through my checklist. You do a 5 to 10% reduction in your weekly calories, and that should be enough to get fat loss to resume again in a fat loss phase. We cannot go super extreme. I told you guys, hey, if you're doing your meal plan and you're not seeing any progress and you're like, I'm doing everything, that's my indication. Okay, we need to make a move. And it would be so slight, like 120 grams of sweet potato to 100. Like, it'd be tiny. And then I might move in a different area. So it's just going to be super gradual. And I know it's shocking to realize your body would respond to such a small adjustment, but it does. If progress has just dipped slightly, you're like losing, but slower than a half a pound of body weight or percent of body weight per week, we are going to be more likely going to be getting closer to a 5% decrease, not all the way to a 10% decrease, which I would not necessarily do. If it has stalled out completely and no weight or measurement changes in 2+ weeks, we will err towards more of a 7.5 to 10% decrease. Okay, we'll get serious here. So very rare to drop someone's calories more than 10% unless we need to be super aggressive for a strict deadline. Photo shoots, shows, stuff like that. Okay, calorie reduction. This reduction in calories can come from our 3 macros, carbs, fats, or our 2 macros, carbs, fats, and a combination of both. We never drop protein. That's never going to happen. Unless you're in a situation where you have an extreme deadline and it's a very short-lived thing, but we want to keep the protein the same. To build or maintain your lean muscle in a fat loss phase, it's essential to get adequate protein. That is the macro that feeds our muscle mass. If we don't give ourselves that, which there are people that don't, your body's going to go after your lean muscle mass for fuel and for energy. And then measurements are going to start going down, and you may have a drastic drop in the scale, but that's because you lost some muscle. And that's not what we want to do. So the measurements are why I've put more stock on that than I do the scale, because you're lifting, you're doing resistance training, so much more beneficial. We'll pull from the fats. If you're still above the fat threshold, which we remember is the 0.3% of our body weight, and you want a lean muscle gain or just a maintenance, that's what we would pull from. You can pull from carbs if you're at the fat threshold, or you just prefer a higher fat diet, so fats and carbs, those are the ones you play with, and it's all personal preference. You pull from both. We pull from both on my your food choices probably are more important factor to sticking to your diet. So if you're just like, no, avocado, can't do it, can't do it. We'll probably decide to move in the carb department. And some people are scared to do carbs. And I'm telling you, carbs are pretty great. So if you remember, it was protein. We burn most during the EEF or TEF, thermogenic energy, something for food. It's the end, it ends with an F and it's for the food. So the protein burns the most. Carbs is next in line. Fat is the lowest. So I kind of I prefer to mess with carbs more. So this will allow you to keep your foods and your diet just in smaller portions, because I've done a few. Where'd you guys go? Okay, there we are. I'm going to stop sharing if the thing would stop moving around. Okay. So I know that was really fast, but I wanted to kind of break it down in the why behind we made the making of choices. Hi baby, she's awake. Oh, no. I hope we did not wake you. She wanted to know about macros too. So, do you guys have any questions? I know that was really fast. I'm going to put this all on a video and this will be recorded as well and put on the Facebook private page so you can go back. But did it help clarify some things on why we're choosing what we're choosing, and that food is the last tool that we use? Absolutely the last one. And then it's very specific on what part of the diet we do change.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that if you were just eating 2 meals a day, which was what I was doing, and that you can't jump to these 0.8, 1.2 protein right away. What did I jump to then? Am I consuming more protein than I will need eventually, or I'm consuming less? You gave me less protein than what I eventually will need eventually.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, depends on your starting point. If you're this body weight and you're looking to drop, we're not taking necessarily we don't have to take your protein way up where you are, because that's not I kind of go more by your target weight. And so, and even if what I gave you, where you're like, Leah, this is too much, I cannot do this much protein, then we would adjust it down even more and then work our way up. And so what you really want is, where's your sweet spot? Where's the weight that you want to hit and maintain? And that's where we're going to, that's my first line of defense and thought process on picking that. And honestly, it's the bare minimum that I put you guys on for really any adult. 25 to 28, or anywhere between 25 and 30 grams of protein per meal is that target. And in men, if I would be writing this totally different for men, because they just have more muscle mass, they just need more. And a lot of the time you can just add like 50 grams or 2 ounces to a man's meal plan, kind of roughly. It wouldn't be as dialed in, it wouldn't be as custom, but that's kind of like what happens. Because I've looked at a ton of things online, and there would be a female category and then there would be a male category of what they recommend, and it didn't have people's weight, people's activity levels, all of that into consideration. This was just very general. So I've written this stuff based on the activity level I expect on a weekly basis from everybody, and that goal. We can even increase protein more if we wanted to, but I don't know if we really need to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal is going to sustain the muscle mass that you have. We go any lower than, we're going to probably be eating up some muscle if we don't get more in. And it keeps you more satiated. It keeps you satisfied, and your body burns the most calories from your food.
Now, will I end up staying on the the same meal plan until I hit that target that we had talked about, or does it change over the weeks as I get closer to it?
We can change it if needed. I like to feed people up. So I would love to add more. I mean, we went from 2 times a day eating to 5 or 6 times a day now eating. And if we're seeing progress and we're feeling energized and we are liking what we see, then we don't fix what isn't broke.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We
Yep.
kind of go with it. And if you suddenly start, your measurements start to go, that's my number one thing. Your measurements start to go down in weird areas. Like, you know, when I have you do your shoulders, I don't want to see that one go down. I don't want to see the butt go down. Not to a level of maybe where we want to see our waistline go down. And you probably notice, like, I've had weird movement in some areas and none in another area. And our body, we've got to look at the trend of what's going on. And then based on what's going on and what you've been doing, if we followed every single one of those check the boxes thing, then we'll decide if adding protein to it, if you're hungry, whatever the case may be. Are you feeling like you want more protein?
No, I was just curious. I am fine. Everything is moving in the right direction. I'm feeling full. I was just curious about, as this goes on, how this will go. So yeah, I'm fine right now, and I'm seeing movement in inches and scale. So I'm doing fine for now.
That's perfect. When you have so much protein intake, that can tend to constipate you.
Okay.
And that's not fun.
Okay.
So we're just gonna like keep some balance. At least 25 to 30 grams per meal is really a very safe zone to be in.
Okay.
But I know, I was like, as I was putting this together, I was going through my process, because you all have a different process of what I wrote you. So I'm like, how can I generalize this enough, to where it's something that you can kind of just understand the foundational side of it. But then, like you said, ask questions about certain things, fats versus carbs. The reason I don't write a ton of fat in is the reason that how much we burn when we're burning carbs versus fat, and personal preference. Sometimes people just don't like the foods that have the carbs versus love the foods that have, like, I wrote, I sent something to someone and I said, okay, I need to adjust. I need to take the sweet potato away on this, or we can do this and add this fat. And she's like, don't take my sweet potato. I was like, okay. So we'll take this away and add this fat. She's like, oh, I have the best, like, type of oil, whatever. It was like, yeah, she was like, yeah, I could do that. And so when you get excited about something, a lot of it is personal preference on what you're doing. I have both in my diet. My prep coaches before, they took every carb away, everything. I was a very hangry person. I was miserable and had no energy. I literally felt like my arms and legs were full of lead. So I probably am a little sensitive to a low carb situation. I don't want to do that to you guys, because that's not what this is about. It's about having as many calories as you possibly can and still seeing progress, because that's just going to get your metabolism rocking up here. And depending on if you have an adaptive or a rigid metabolism, I have an adaptive one. That's what we're going for you guys to have an adaptive one, so that it responds, that if you did increase calories at one point, your metabolism just kind of goes up. And that's what those treat meals are about. Okay. So that's, we tickle the metabolism, we tease it, and then we bring it back down. So that's what's helping you also get in an adaptive metabolism. I don't know many people, honestly, that have the rigid. So the adaptive, but there can be a weak adaptive. like it's not super strong. And so when you come from a place of totally under eating, and then we go to eating more, but what are we eating? What is the food that we are eating? Then that's going to stimulate all of this. And then our activity level, which I've written specifically to match, and that's where like progress is really going to synergistically come together. And then because I don't want your body to adapt to a deficit at all, like I want to just find the line, I do the treat meals. And those treat meals are really important, because then the adaptive metabolism kicks in, and then all of a sudden you takes it away. And then it's like, I mean, before your metabolism knows what's going on, it's like, okay, we'll just hang out up here. And it's like, lose a couple more pounds after a treat meal, which is totally cool. So it's just really important. That's why when I'm done with a prep, we immediately start adding macros and calories into my diet so that I don't have metabolic adaptation. And so many people stay there because they like this lean look. And I'm like, abs are not worth it. They're not. I like food. I love food. So, and I do know that a lot of you have reported more energy and just feeling better. When you give your body that fuel, that right fuel and nutrition, you can just be in a better mental state, which has a huge effect on everything, how we view ourselves, and our mindset. So she is just a feisty little girl, isn't she? Do you guys have any other, something totally unrelated? And did you have a question throughout the week? An issue, a comment? Cassie, I love all your food prep ideas. They're so fun to see. I love it. And you're encouraging memes and all that.
Weird question. I take collagen powder in the mornings in my coffee, and it has a lot of protein in it. Does that count towards?
It can. Yeah, it can. And you can keep doing that because, that macro is very, the likelihood of you being in like a surplus of food, the protein is really, if you add anything, the protein is really like the safest to kind of keep your results, which I love. I have collagen written in my plan too. So, and if anybody likes to do that, I do some specific, like the multivitamin, fish oil, those types of things. But I know some people just really love certain supplements. They find them, CBD stuff and all that. So yeah, it's a personal thing. That's perfect. How much do you use? Just curious.
It's 2 scoops.
And is it many protein?
It's at 18 grams.
See? Yeah. That is not a lot. 18
Okay.
grams of protein.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you're getting the benefits of the collagen. So that's really great. What brand do you use? Do you use, I know Bulletproof has a good brand of collagen I like. And so you see like, people that go on the keto diet, kind of why and all the mentality behind that. I'm not a huge fan of the keto diet, to be honest, because of just the numbers, it's that number of like, okay, 20% we burn from protein is where our calories get burned. Our body digesting that, we are burning calories, and that is protein. Then it goes to carbs. Fat's way down on the scale. It's like 3%. But it does keep you a little bit more satisfied. So if you we've talked a little bit about like adding a fat to a carb, because a fat digests slower. And if you need that carb, you can't add any carbs necessarily. You don't want to, but you want to add a little bit of fat to slow that down. So I have my protein in the morning. I have a half a cup, very much similar to you guys. It's just like a serving of oats. and then a tablespoon of peanut butter, which is about 7 grams, only about 7 grams of fat, but it keeps me sustained a lot longer. That once that tablespoon of peanut butter goes away, I'm very sad. But it goes away because my body needs to use my own body fat as energy, but not as gradual. It's such a little game of bringing this up, bringing this down. Where do we hang? All of that. And that's one of my biggest goals on this program, is to help you really grasp like all of that, so you just can make better choices. And I think the why behind things is so much more powerful to know. Because then if you saw something online, or your friends telling you, well, yeah, I did this celery and juice diet and it was supposed to be like, yeah, girl, no, that's not a good idea.
Well, before you, I was using the Premier proteins in my coffee, and my boyfriend was like, if you take in all that protein and don't exercise, you're just going to gain weight like crazy. So I was not eating protein. Thanks.
Well, and I can see his point, but you probably weren't taking enough in for the rest
No.
of your day for
Definitely not.
right. That's a little tiny blip of your protein. So I say protein away. Protein away. And you'll be satisfied longer. And there's just so many benefits to the protein. So. Anything else so I can support you in before we get off the phone? I'm here for 4 more minutes, taking of your time. Any other weird things that you guys would like to share that happened in the week? Funny things, whatever. I was seriously like needing to coach myself off the ledge this last few days, because I'm like, what would I tell my clients? And be like, okay, it's only been 5 days, Leah, relax. Like, this doesn't happen overnight. And I'm like, but I'm working so hard. And then Jasmine wanted to decorate a cake, and I'm like, oh, you're killing me good. And then like the frosting and all that. And I'm like, just a little. I was like, no. And then the kids wanted pizza. I'm like, okay, I gotta have my meal before I order this. It was just like, oh, you guys are killing me this Labor Day weekend. That was rough. But I did end up having to go to a restaurant. We went to Eureka Springs, and I go to the lady, I said, this is gonna be a little weird. I said, and if you can't do some of it, that's okay. I said, but can you do just the chicken sandwich without the bread? You can put the veggies and stuff on there, like dry. And then you guys have avocado back there? Because I thought I saw guacamole or whatever. She goes, yeah. I go, can I just get a half of avocado on the side? And she's like, half avocado. I go, yeah, just like, you could just bring me the avocado if you want to. I don't care. And she's like, okay. I said, and then sweet potatoes, like, how much is that? How do you cook those? Do you deep fry them, or like how bitch? She's just like, no, it's like this. I'm like, okay, I'll take that too. So I was able to stay on my plan. I was like, all right, I used to travel with a scale. Now that's a little extreme, but when I'm, I just didn't know. I know now, as you measure your stuff out and do things, you can eyeball it almost to the gram. You just know. So then when you go to a restaurant, like a year from now, and somebody puts this huge plate of something in front of you, like 2 huge 4-ounce chicken breasts, and you're like, is this all for me? Realizing how much we overate all the time at restaurants. It's insane, but you don't freak out, because you're getting a meal in another 2.5, 3 hours, or you are going to eat in another 2.5 hours, and you're not starved. That's why I like to do every few hours, because then if you go too long, and your brain gets hijacked, okay, by hunger. And I experienced the same thing. All the knowledge I have, I still get hijacked by that hunger, and I make justifications. I make poor decisions with my justifications. I do, still to this day. So we're always a work in progress. And I'm glad I know the why behind a lot of this, because I feel like it's so much more powerful in my life. And I can talk myself off the ledge. when I'm on there. All righty, ladies. I am very proud of you guys. I think you guys are both doing amazing. Everybody listening on the recording, all of you. I've been in communication with nearly all of you, so I feel still connected with you guys. But I always like to be able to share stuff and visually, like being able to give that to you. So if you have nothing else, I'll let you get back to your day. She looks like she's ready to go play, Mom. She got ants in her pants.
Yeah, she's crazy.
It's like holding a rabid squirrel on your lap. You're trying to like wrangle them. See, you're burning a lot of calories right now.
Oh,
All righty, ladies. You have a wonderful rest of the week.
you
Baby
too.
girl.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.